There is a tiny pavilion by a pool inside Liuyuan Garden in Suzhou called the Haopu Pavilion. It was built there by the owner of this garden to reflect a story of a philosopher thousands of years ago. That was over 2,000 years ago. One day, the philosopher Zhuangzi was walking over the bridge over the Haoshui River together with a friend. It was a very beautiful day, and there were fish swimming in the water. Zhuangzi said, "Look, these fish are swimming at their leisure." Huizi said, "You are not a fish. How do you know whether they are happy or not?" Zhuangzi answered, "You are not me. How do you know that I do not know if the fish are happy?" These words have attracted Chinese intellectuals for thousands of years. Unconventional and optimistic, the aesthetic sentiment expressed by this has been pursued by later generations. It encompasses the ideas behind the design and construction of a unique corner of the courtyard, China's gardens. The construction of the Suzhou Gardens completely reflects the style and features of the Chinese garden, which people have been building for hundreds of years. Expressing their feelings for the scenery was the original intention of the owners in building gardens. Imitating nature and natural structures are the main concept in building these gardens. The mountains are odd and jagged. The waters are clear and faint. The paths are twisting and winding. There are different types of windows, such as long rectangular windows, terraced windows, carved flower windows, inset windows, semi-windows, semi-walls, and many others. The purpose is to put the scene within one frame. Handrails, gooseneck chairs, latticed overhangs, man-made rocks, moon gates, and carvings and engravings echo and interact with the scenery. In the garden, pavilions and towers, hills and water, flowers and trees are the elegant work of the literati to express their feelings. Most owners of these gardens were retired officials. Unusual thinking made the features of these buildings deviate from the proprieties and rules of more standard ones. The usual axis and geometrical layout are gone, and in its place are diversified curves and beautiful and elegant decorations. Here, the practical residential functions of the structure are gradually weakened and washed away. The poetic sentiment and inspiration emitted by these private gardens is a leisurely and enjoyable stroke beyond sacred ceremony and the proprieties of architecture. The intent is to build something special that belongs to the Orient, a spiritual home. A herd of mules moved along a tortuous mountain road. That was a summer day. Towards evening, riding the mules on a bumpy road, two ancient architects thought it was another day without gain. Suddenly, a large and bright corbel bracket faintly emerged from the woods on a hill. The sun was setting, the glow of sunset remained. A magnificent religious hall gradually appeared in full before the two architects' eyes. Looking at the building before them, fading from the memory of those on earth, the two shed tears of excitement. That was more than 1,000 years ago, in 857 AD during the Tang Dynasty. A religious woman named Ning Gongyu donated the funds to build this temple of the Glory of the Buddha, on Mount Wutai. It is one of only 2 wooden constructions left among those built in the Tang Dynasty. The main hall of the temple is the East Hall, which is the tallest of all the others. The exterior of the main hall is very simple. The struts, tablets, corbel brackets, doors, windows, and walls are all tinted red without other colors. Clay sculptures and frescoes from the Tang Dynasty in the main hall have been perfectly preserved. Experiencing countless earthquakes, exposed to dust storms and bad weather, this wooden temple has stood there as solid as the mountain for over 1,000 years. In North China, there is a ballad, Changzhou's Lions, Yingxian's Pagodas, Zhengding's Bodhisattva, and Jiaozhou's Bridges. With clues from the ballad and records in ancient books, during the war turmoil years of the 20th century, people found the ancient pagoda, which had long disappeared from sight. The wooden pagoda in Yingxian County can be considered a typical example of Chinese wooden architecture. Its interior connections are very complicated, skillful, and ideal. For such a tall pagoda, not even a single nail was used, and all its joints are connected by tenons. The higher the pressure, the tighter the tenons hold. Tilting slightly towards the center, the four sides of the house make the center of the building even more stable. For more than 900 years, Yingxian Wooden Pagoda has withstood innumerable earthquakes. Gaining materials from nature and making full use of them, Chinese ancient architecture has created a unique form of wooden structure to brace the unique building. For wooden roofs, the upper structure is supported by corbel brackets, both ingenious and useful. All kinds of frames formed with girders and studs deliver the structural mass of the upper loads through the girders and studs to the ground. The function of the walls are merely for enclosure and separation, not for load bearing. Similarly, the doors and windows are not restricted by load-bearing capacity from the walls. Chinese wooden buildings are such a wonder that they are described by saying, "Walls will not cause the collapse of the estate." Being harmonious and resonating with the rhythm of nature, a Chinese wooden building stands erect. In the wee hours of a cold winter day, when daytime is the shortest, according to the ancient Chinese calendar, this is called midwinter. On a spacious altar in the south part of the city, a newly enthroned emperor walks slowly towards the heavenly heart stone in the center of the altar. At that moment, before the morning sun shines, the earth is deadly quiet, and the monarch prays to heaven. Nothing else could be heard but his voice resounding in the sky. This was an extremely important moment in an emperor's political career. For hundreds of years, more than 10 emperors came here in succession to offer sacrifices to heaven and earth. Setting up a sacrificial altar in the suburbs is a tradition in the construction of China's capital. With the establishment of the capital, so the sacrifice buildings are established. The Temple of Heaven lying below is exactly such a masterwork, embodying the ceremony and propriety of Chinese architecture. In correspondence with celestial phenomena, the Temple of Heaven is mysterious and full of symbols. It puts a particular emphasis on the symbols of configuration, color, and digits. The sky is blue and the land is yellow, so the roof and tops of the short walls have blue glazed tiles to signify the building's color. Walking in an atmosphere composed of the colors white and blue, we cannot help but feel solemn and respectful. Digits in designing this building also have a very strong symbolic relationship. In China, more than any other structures, for sacrificial structures, digits are of the utmost significance. In ancient China, the odd numbers 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 were solar numbers, also called the numbers of heaven. So the altar, be that the grounds, staircases, handrails, or number of stones used to build them, should all be multiples of 9. This multiple can also be found on each floor and in their diameter. Thus, the whole altar is a structure full of the magic digit 9. Ceremonial architecture has the function of worshiping nature, the gods, and ancestors. Many important ceremonial activities take place here. Altars built in the capital were places of worship for the emperors. There is no doubt that the construction is most complicated and digit-based. In the sense of aesthetics, it represents the essential imagination of a nation towards all things of creation. The ancestral temple is a place for royal families and local officials to offer sacrifice to their ancestors. The style and features of construction reflect insurmountable stateliness. Extending from the south to the north of the country, there are also temples where personalities in history are worshipped. Seeking spiritual investiture from literary feelings and thoughts, people constructed these splendid private gardens. Questing for a spiritual settling place from the point of religious perception, people also built these mysterious religious buildings. Hoping to find a spiritual home from heaven and earth, thus, these sacrificial buildings emerge to offer sacrifice to heaven and earth. They are all the spiritual home of the Chinese people. In Tibet, there is an ancient ballad. Aga is neither a stone nor earth. Aga is the cream of the lotus flower land in the remote mountains. In Tibetan, Aga refers to a white color material. This mysterious material is widely distributed 3,000 to 4,000 meters above sea level in Tibet. Mixed with water, ghee, plant extracts, Then smashed and tamped, it is solid and waterproof and can be used for roofs. It is a very special material for construction. Agar earth paves the grounds of the Potala Palace, the road for Tibetans in China to worship. The Potala Palace, a dreamlike religious palace, is situated in Lhasa, over 3,000 meters above sea level. The imposing palaces and halls with golden roofs domineer over the clouds. Layers of amazing cloisters, the vigorousness of the height, the resplendent and magnificent shades of color, all make this like an imperial palace in heaven. China is a multi-ethnic country. It has diverse forms of construction combining the styles and features of many different nationalities. Nomads live in a type of felt tent with a vaulted roof, such as the Mongolian yurt, Tibetan tent, Kazakhstan and Charkis Rotan tent, made of felt covering a wooden structure. All are easy to move and set up. From north to south, residential buildings of minority nationalities are of various styles. There are many different styles of houses, such as the Tuzhang house, made of clay and wood, built by the Yi and Hani minorities in the southwest mountainous regions, the tile house of the Bai and Naxi minorities, and the stone house of the Bui nationality. There are many construction techniques included. After settling down, minority nationalities in North China usually built houses of brick, such as the four-section compound of the Man minority, the boat-shaped roofs of the Korean minority. Both styles combine use and beauty together. In the southwest and southeast minority areas, there are over 20 minorities who build based on a pole structure, such as the bamboo buildings of the Dai people. There is a record of this from 1,500 years ago. The Hakka minority build rammed earth buildings for their homes. Most are distributed on the borders of Fujian, Guangdong, and Jiangxi provinces. They are very large and of 4 or 5 stories. Most scholars would call them world wonders, especially because of their unique, round shape with a flat roof. This type of residence is very rare worldwide. China is home to many and diverse types of architecture. This is a history of multi-ethnic civilization written with clay and wood. When walking up the stairs to Sun Yat-sen's mausoleum, with each step upward, bounteous ancient impressions bump up against the emotions of our reality. In 1926, a famous Chinese architect, Lu Yanzhi, created the top tomb in China's contemporary architectural history. As a classic work, Sun Yat-sen's mausoleum especially represents the harmonious layout of Chinese architecture, combining with the natural topography and surrounding greenery. Its tall staircases, elegant arrangement, granite tablets stating humanity are very distinctive. It combines construction features from both at home and abroad and is a masterpiece of Eastern and Western culture. In the 20th century, a new look has taken place in the process of blending modern Chinese architecture with Western culture. The traditional patterns of construction have changed, and new buildings tend to expand the active space for people. Since 1949, China's architecture has experienced the ancient-style restoration period, which mainly features partial big rooftops, and the period of New Socialism, represented by the 10 major buildings. Since the 1980s, Chinese architecture has gradually opened up and become more compatible. Gradually, development is becoming more diversified. Chinese-American I.M. Pei has designed many famous buildings around the world. In 1978, after accepting the job to design the Fragrant Hills Hotel, he was not in a hurry to finalize the design. When walking through the woods at the Fragrant Hills, I.M. Pei thought carefully about the construction contours that suited this natural environment. Later, I.M. Pei visited many gardens around China before finally adopting an irregular layout for his design, which allows the Fragrant Hills Hotel to be in harmony with the surrounding water, hills, and tall trees. Perhaps this is cultural instinct. The style, color, and features of traditional ancient Chinese architecture have already permeated the blood of the new generation of architects. Today, traditional style is not only about decoration and color, nor about recalling traditional civilization. At present, as the development of architectural styles is diversifying, there is a new tie of connecting the ancient and modern architectural cultures to make them harmonious with life, with nature, and with the larger international family. Generations of architectural genius have been reared on this vast land. How many architectural structures, which in the past were magnificent, have disappeared in the dense fog of history, and also have disappeared from our memory the names of generations of architectural artisans. All we can do is to touch history and smell the scent of the culture of our ancestors through the bricks and stones that remain. In these cities and houses, it seems we have already traced out their outlines. The buildings in the distance shimmer ethereally in the smoke and fog of history, half hidden, half visible, their silhouette reflecting the historical image of this nation, Chinese architecture.